and I feel called intuitively, because you should always lead from your inner voice first. I felt called to go to this Saturn line, which is local space-wise, it's going right through Los Angeles, in this area that I'm living in.
Hello from Amsterdam.
From Brooklyn, New York.
From beautiful Ubud, Bali. From San Diego. I am in Iceland right now. Shanghai. I'm in Paris at the moment. I am here on my Jupiter descendant line in Tallinn, Estonia. Hello from Biarritz in France.
When it comes to astrocartography, I don't want to just hear the information. I want to see someone walk the walk. Not talk it, but walk it. Like literally live astrocartography. And that's what I'm doing. I'm traveling the world, living in different places on different lines, different parents, and timing my travels so that I can go at the best optimal time to fully experience these storylines so that I can better help other people. Over the last 2 years, I've worked with over 1,500 clients doing astrocartography work. And I have seen how often people experience opportunities or a door opening or something really activating and shifting in their lives for the better when they've got Jupiter transits and when they have nodal returns or nodal squares, nodal oppositions. These two transits are things I often find are heightened experiences for people when they go to these areas when Jupiter transits and activates a planetary line on their map. And so that's what I've been doing. I've seen this firsthand with so many of my clients. They go somewhere and a Jupiter transit activates a story for them, or a nodal return or a nodal transit activates a story for them, or they go through a Venus progression, or they go through some really nice transit or progression in that location that helps them and supports them. And so because I've studied this with so many clients, I am now doing that firsthand. I'm putting myself out there in the world, traveling, taking risks, packing up my suitcases and going to these planetary lines and experiencing these transits firsthand. I've done this twice so far. Once when I went to Tallinn, Estonia in the fall when I saw Jupiter transit was applying to a Jupiter line, and now I'm doing it a second time. And let me tell you, the luck, the abundance, the opportunities, the expansion that continues to happen every time I go to Jupiter lines when Jupiter is applying and transiting toward me. It's amazing how this happens like clockwork. And that's exactly what happened on this trip coming out to LA. You may remember in my last video, I talked about how to time your travels and time your trips using Solar Fire, which if you wanted to get my most preferred software for astrocartography so you can time your trips and your travels and do cyclocartography, check out my link down below in this description and you can get 15% off because it is a very expensive advanced astrology software, but you can get 15% off using my code WOODS15 and that will save you 15% off at checkout. I've tried so many different softwares. SolarFire is hands down the best and it's the one I recommend to everyone. In that video, I talked about how you can time your trips, but I want to share with you a little story time video of what happened to me when I came out here to my Jupiter line and my moon midheaven line when a Jupiter transit is applying toward this line. I woke up the first morning, and so little story time. I woke up the first morning here in LA. First off, I felt lucky. I don't know what it is about this energy here. You know, I'm on a moon MC, I'm on a Jupiter line, and I also have Saturn local space going right through LA. So talk about, that's really interesting, right? Going through a Saturn return, and I feel called intuitively, because you should always lead from your inner voice first. I felt called to go to this Saturn line, which is local space-wise, it's going right through Los Angeles, in this area that I'm living in too. But I felt called to come to this Saturn line for some reason. And it's here that I'm actually doing so much work. I'm getting my life organized, healthy habits, routines, nutrition, exercise, my daily work schedule, like everything's getting organized and structured here, which is such a great way to use Saturn energy for any of you guys curious. But when I got here, I just knew that something amazing was gonna happen at some point. I didn't know what, but I had a feeling that there was something about collaboration, connection, working with others that was really going to grow for me here. I felt that intuitively, but I also saw it on the transit, right? With Jupiter crossing over my descendant and applying toward my descendant. So I knew that, right? But it was the first morning I woke up in LA, the first morning here. I woke up from an email from a huge blog. I'm not going to name the blog. Maybe I'll announce it. I'll announce it on Instagram and the community tab over here on YouTube once it comes out, the piece. But a huge, huge blog reached out to me and wanted me to write a piece on astrocartography. The last time this happened was when I was in Tallinn, Estonia, when Well and Good blog, Well and Good, which is huge, asked me to write and contribute to astrocartography, to a piece they were writing. It was the first time that ever happened, was when I was last in Tallinn, Estonia. But this happened again this time for the first time, but for a new blog, an even bigger blog. And so I was offered to write a piece that first morning I woke up. That morning, I also woke up to another email from a major YouTube channel that's been doing this for so long, an astrology channel, which you guys may remember. I was on a live call with Serious Joy TV here on YouTube with Chris, and we did a live chat about astrocartography. And that email literally came in the first morning I was here. So I was just like, that is crazy. The last time this happened was when Chris Brennan reached out to me on the Astrology podcast when I was in Tallinn, Estonia, and Jupiter was applying, right? So it's like, we're getting similar stories that don't happen to me when I'm in France. When I'm in France, I do get asked, but they're usually like small channels or they're new beginning podcasts that don't really have a following and don't have a lot of visibility. And right now, where I'm at and my level that I'm at, I'm really shooting for more visibility. And I want to work with more podcasts and YouTube channels that have a bigger audience and a platform, because I've done so many podcasts and interviews over the last 4 years that are very small, and I'm ready to take it up a notch. You know, I'm ready for more. And so the first morning I got here, I woke up to that email and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. The last time this happened was when I was in Tallinn, Estonia. The next morning that I woke up here in LA, the next morning, I woke up from another email inquiry from Well and Good asking me to contribute to another piece. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's weird. The last time this happened was in Tallinn, Estonia. And then also the next day, I ended up going on Instagram saying, I want to get on more podcasts. And influencer, an amazing woman who is from the US, she's moved to the UK. She has an amazing podcast. It's so inspiring and uplifting, and it's just so resonant with my vibe and my energy. And I just totally resonated with her. She has a huge audience and a huge podcast that she's starting season 1, and she's had incredible high profile guests on her first season. And she asked me to be on her podcast. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is exactly the type of audience I'm looking for. This is exactly the type of space I'm looking to share this knowledge in. And I just couldn't believe that that happened too. And then I also just feel so expanded by my community here in LA. I have several friends here in LA that they're just such expanders for me. They're so inspiring. They've done such incredible things with their lives here in LA. One of them is a very successful, model and actress, and she knows so many people that I've been wanting to meet. But also I have other friends that are just doing incredible things with their lives and are so inspiring and expansive, and I feel so expanded by these people that I have here, these friendships, these connections, these networks, the people I'm meeting every day, just going into SoulCycle, going into that pizza shop, going into that random store and meeting up with someone and making friends with someone and swapping Instagrams. And I just feel so expanded by people here in LA. And it's amazing how this has all happened as soon as I stepped foot here in LA. Now, I was in Oceanside for a week before I came up to LA. I was in my hometown visiting my mom and friends, but coming back to LA is where the magic just clicked. In Oceanside, I had some magical things come up for me, more in my dreams and my subconscious, but it was actually in LA specifically that all of these business and career opportunities started coming in. And I don't know why exactly. The only thing I can think of is looking at that Saturn local space line that's going right through Los Angeles. Also, timing-wise, that Jupiter is applying rapidly toward my descendant at this point, a week later. So there are some subtle shifts, but it's really interesting. Isn't that interesting, right? And that's kind of the approach that I have with astrocartography and astrology is, isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting and curious that every time I come to a Jupiter line and Jupiter is applying to that Jupiter, whether it's in a square, an opposition, a return, whatever, whenever I come to a Jupiter line, because remember, in astrocartography, we have 4 Jupiter lines in the whole world. They're on different angles. And so depending on where you are, that Jupiter is going to hit differently. But in my natal chart, when I come back to California, that Jupiter is on the descendant. And it's coming up to the sun, which rules my career. So it's coming and applying to that natal sun, which is the ruler of the career in the 10th house, Leo, the sun, right? So we're seeing that connection. But isn't it interesting that this keeps happening every time I travel to these lines? I say all this to encourage you to look at your natal chart or your relocated chart, depending on where you are in the world. And if you're on a Jupiter line and you can see transit-wise that you've got either a Jupiter return happening when Jupiter comes back to its natal placement once every 12 years, a Jupiter opposition when Jupiter is directly opposing your natal Jupiter placement, or when you're in the middle of a Jupiter square. Anytime Jupiter makes one of those 4 hits or one of those points, that is a time that I would go to a Jupiter line. And that's what I have done these last 2 trips. I keep traveling to Jupiter lines because I know that I am in the middle of a Jupiter opposition. Jupiter is directly opposing my natal Jupiter placement this year with Jupiter in Taurus. My natal Jupiter's in Scorpio. So because I've known that, I've been wanting to go to more Jupiter lines to experience this wave, this timing, and take advantage of the opportunity. And let me tell you, it has not disappointed at all. It has not disappointed in the slightest, because every time I'm here on this Jupiter line, on any Jupiter line, I feel so expansive, optimistic, resilient, a can-do spirit. Whereas when I'm on a Saturn line, I'm a little bit more realistic, a little bit more stoic, a little bit more serious. The energy is different, and especially because I've timed it right so that I'm on a Jupiter line when I'm going through a Jupiter transit. So that's my advice for you. Check out your transits and see if you've got any Jupiter activity with one of those 4 points I mentioned, a square, an opposition, or a return, and go to your Jupiter lines then, because it's amazing. Like, I feel so good being on Jupiter lines during this time, but also I feel like everything I touch turns to magic, or I feel so uplifted, encouraged, expansive, opportunities, doors opening. And not only do I feel that way, but the physical reality is literally reflecting that back to me. And there's also something really powerful about deciding, when I came to LA, I knew something amazing was going to happen. I knew something magical was going to happen. And it's not just astrology related, I just knew. I'm a claircognizant. I have a psychic ability of claircognizance, and we all have psychic abilities, whether it's clairaudient, clairsentient. There's so many different clairs or psychic abilities. For me, I have strong claircognizance. I just know things without being able to explain why or how I know it. I just know it in my body. I know it in my stomach. I know it to be true. And when you decide, know that with every fiber of your being, like this is a magical time in life, and you put yourself out there and you get outside of your comfort zone and you take a leap of faith, you take a risk, and you do something that's uncomfortable, and you put yourself in the way of magic, magical things will come to you. And this is something I know to be fact and I know to be true. But let me tell you, so many of us are afraid of leaving comfort. So many of us are afraid of feeling unsettled or like taking a risk because we're so comfortable in our known, in our home, in our families, in whatever situation we're in. Now, I should also mention, I do not have kids. I do not have obligations to a boss. I'm an entrepreneur, but I created my life this way. So a lot of people will say, easy for you to say you don't have kids. Yeah, I chose this. I chose this life. I chose to be child-free by choice. I chose to be an entrepreneur. I chose to create my own business. I chose to have the freedom to do this. A lot of work went into that. A lot of work and time and energy and years of blogging and putting myself out there and having no results. But this life I created was because I took chances every day. And nothing, like no doubt, no insecurity stopped me ever from pursuing what I loved. And it's still like that now. I refuse to let fear or doubt or a feeling of comfort stop me or get in the way of me pursuing a life I love and creating a magical life in places I love. This is the life I created for myself. And there's something that's so important to say, is that when you take ownership of your life and you create and decide, like, this is a life I am deciding to create, that's magnetic, that's powerful, and amazing things will come to you when you decide and you choose and you believe and you know with every fiber of your being. It's magical. That's a magical life. And so I say all this because, yes, astrocartography is huge when it comes to this. Absolutely. Timing is everything. If I told you, what are my beliefs? Do you manifest everything? Or do you, is everything timed? I'm an astrologer. I'm a traditional Hellenistic astrologer. I'm going to tell you that everything is divinely timed and that you don't have to worry about anything. But there's something also powerful and magnetic about also deciding, this is how I choose for my life to be right now. And that is the power in deciding, the law of assumption. Deciding this is how it is. This is what I'm available for. That's what I wanted to share with you guys, is how magical it is. I've only been here a few days, so I still have so much more to experience here in LA, but I did want to film a little story time to kind of keep you up to speed on the energy here, how I feel here, but also what's been manifesting and happening in my physical reality since arriving here in LA, and I've only been here for a few days. I don't want to say a few days, I think 5 days at this point. I've been here 5 days. So I say all this to encourage you, inspire you, and look at those Jupiter transits in your chart. Be sure to get my free astrocartography guide, which you can get in the description down below. It's free information for you. I hope this helps support you on your journey learning astrocartography, and I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you in the next video.